Bits and Pieces is iconic.
It's almost like a sound that everybody knows.
No matter if you're 60 or 18, you get up in the dance floor, dance to it.
People love it. People go tonto.
When that comes on, my granddad gets his wee foot going and he's 75.
I think it just defines Scotland so much, just kind of a football national anthem.
Bits and Pieces, here we go.
Bits and Pieces is kind of like the iconic old school tune. It's one of these songs that just won't go away. It's become part of Scottish culture now. The original was like from 1994 and it was a big song, but it wasn't like this ultimate anthem that it's become. Bits and Pieces I don't even think was a top 40 hit, but it's just one of those songs that grabbed people. We did a cover version of it about 10 years ago maybe, me and Sparkos. It just like, that was it. It was kind of set in stone that we were part of this kind of legacy of Bits and Pieces.
I don't know much about the origins at all, really.
I thought it was from here. I thought it was a Scottish thing.
I think I overheard a few people saying that it was Dutch.
The last time I was here, the driver, is it, are you a DJ? Like, I was just chatting. You DJ? No, yeah, I'm a producer and whatever. Anything I know, and I just did, he actually almost drove the car into the railing. You know, it's like, what? And the photos, and it's funny. It's very funny. But this, it's almost like Bits and Pieces has a life on its own, right? In that, because it keeps on servicing and weddings, funerals, right?
Patrick Prins is like a genius songwriter and producer, and under so many different names. I mean, there'll be a load of tunes you might even have in your collection. You think you won't know it was Patrick Prins because he did Artemesia, I did La Luna to the beat of the drum.
Bang, to the beat of the drum. Bang, bang, to the beat of the drum. Bang, to the beat of the drum. Bang, bang, to the beat of the drum.
He did Subliminal Cuts, that was one of his pseudonyms. I don't even know if he used the same name twice. I think Patrick's the type of guy that would just make a track, give it a name, give the band a name, put it out there, and I don't think he's ever brought anything out as Patrick Prins.
I'm a country boy, right? So Zaandijk, which is near Amsterdam, from a very normal family. My dad was a really big fan of drums, a drum solo. So he had all these records from Gene Krupa, Lionel Hampton. Bits and Pieces comes from that, because I wanted to make a track which was more based on the rhythmic side of things. My dad was retired, he was car mechanic, so he had a very small shop. And he was really proud of me and supportive. So we made sort of like a small studio in that old garage. And in that old garage I did a lot of stuff because that was my domain. So I had everything, you know, it was brilliant. And I borrowed synthesizers and it's a great time. My biggest influence always came from overseas, the UK sound. And actually my records, or the first demos I made, including Bits and Pieces, I went into record companies in Holland and said, this is awful. And they said, you need to make something more like the technotronic sounds. Like, no, fucking no. We're not gonna do that. The first guy who picked it up, Bits and Pieces, was actually DICKENS from Hooch Tunes. Because I lived in the UK for 6 months, and he brought the record to a bigger level. Then it became quite successful. And then I spoke to the guys in Holland, and I was in the record store, and they were speaking about it. Yeah, this is a new guy, and blah, blah, blah. And that was, I actually presented it to him, and they rejected it. So it was just funny.
We just started doing the GB experience when Bits and Pieces came out. But yeah, back then, really you would only hear it in a club or on a specialist dance show. The rave scene at that point was so big. Every big town or city had like one legendary club that ran for years. Some of the clubs were open till 7 in the morning. You had the Hangar down in Ayr where Trevor Riley was a resident. Then you had the Metro in Saltcoats. Fubar in Stirling, I was playing that a couple of weeks ago, and it was great. It was packed out, but it still shut at 3. Back in the day, it used to be open till 7 in the morning. It used to go out. Resurrection used to go to Ingliston. People used to go out 4 or 5 nights a week. Some people, my wife talks about how she would go out on a Thursday and come home on a Sunday. You know what I mean? And that's what it was like. It was everybody lived for the clubs. I was lucky because my dad owned nightclubs, so I watched it all kind of evolve. And the mid to late 80s, there was this kind of sound from Chicago, house music that came over. Of course, we do what we do in Scotland. We just took it and put our own spin on it. So bands came along like TTF, the first one that sprang to mind, to just like completely change that. They grabbed that scene and absolutely changed it. DJs like Tom Wilson, producers like Scott Brown were out there doing stuff, and Scotland created its own scene almost that took the kind of American house scene and said, this is how we're going to do it. It's funny because down in London they were all playing garage and we were playing bang, and still a little bit like that. And I always put it down to like, we're a lot colder up here, so we need to jump about to keep warm. Whenever English DJs say, what is it with you jocks, why is it so fast? I said, because it's a lot colder up there. We've got to jump about, keep ourselves active, heat up somehow. There was an era in the 90s when they had to name everything. There was house and hard house and handbag house.
Now, first somebody said to me, yeah, what you do is handbag. It's like, what is handbag music? And now I know it was the girls standing on the dance floor with their purse in the middle.
Handbag house was quite cheesy, vocally tunes, a lot of like cover versions and what have you, and hard house was kind of like boom, boom, boom. And somebody came up with hard bag, which was a commercial version of hard house, which wasn't quite, it's just like giving someone a name for the sake of a name. It's an anthem and that's it, you know. Tunes are either anthems or they're not, and Bits and Pieces is an anthem.
The hardback came from that Tony DeWitt was playing a lot of my tunes in Trade, and he was a big fan of Artemesia as well.
Tony was a DJ in Trade, which was the big gay club in London. He kind of changed the dance scene a lot. He actually did a remix of Bits and Pieces. His remix of Bits and Pieces is kind of legendary too. He died far too young. It's such a shame. It's sadly missed, but he left his mark. There was a resurgence for all that kind of old dance music from the rave scene at the millennium. Bits and Pieces probably came out about 94, but it seems to be since the old school era of the millennium. That was the one kind of standout tune that would be referred to as an old school anthem.
Bits and Pieces keeps on surfacing, and I think it must be about honesty, because it's not sugar-coated, it's just what it is, and I made it quite fast. And I was totally in a roll, and I think I made it in a day or 2 days, because it just flowed. Most producers I know just take banks, buy a bank, and that's it. And you can, you know, what I like to do is, if I need a kick drum, the kick drum in Bits and Pieces is actually a snowball. And I'm not kidding you, it's a snowball thrown at the wall. And it's just, you know, and there's my studio door is also on top. It's a layer, and that's the kick drum.
It's so much easier to make a dance track than it was 25 years ago. But Patrick will still do it the same way. That's his thing. He's always done it, and it's like, you maybe even see it as selling out if he went to produce the way we all produce, because we're all quite lazy. He's putting a shift in, that guy, and he's had the return on it. I met Patrick after we did the track, a good few years after we did the track actually. He's not a guy I knew back in the day. I wish I had known him back in the day because I could have learnt so much from a guy like that.
I was totally unaware that the GBX guys were actually did this cover version, and I did a really good job. And I think he's one of the, well, you can almost call him an ambassador of the track.
So George and I present together on Clyde One on The Breakfast Show. He's brought the song to the new generation. And when I cover George and the GBX on his Saturday night dance show that's across like Glasgow, I'll get kids that phone in, and it gives you that warm feeling because you think, wow, they're growing up with this as well. Like, this isn't just an old fad, you know, and you'll get them on the phone and be like, hi Cassie, can I get bits and pieces please? And I'm like, of course you can. Happiest memory has got to be Tea in the Park. For me, 100%. When we heard Calvin Harris was coming, we were like, we need to start a campaign, you know, to try and get bits and pieces to be played by Calvin. It would just be unreal. So we went on Twitter, put it up there. People were retweeting it. Calvin was tagged in all these posts, never reacted. We didn't expect a reaction from Calvin. He's a busy man, you know. So went to Tea in the Park. Calvin's in the midst of his set. He's coming to the end. And I'm actually starting to walk away, and I heard him let everything go silent. And I thought, that's him finished. And as I just turned around again, it was like the lights went up, and then it was and I went, oh no way! And I was so excited. I mean, I can't even describe the feeling. Calvin Harris dropped the tune, and the crowd went off their heads, loved it.
After Calvin played it, like everyone was talking about the song. Our version was in the charts. It was insane. Patrick's version was on the charts as well, and then the SFA contacted me and asked me if I would DJ at Hampden, which I thought was really weird, before a Scotland game. What had happened was they had done a poll, and this went out all over social media, and it was sent to every member of the Tartan Army, I believe, and everyone had a vote, and Bits and Pieces got 52% of the vote, which was incredible. And I know they've done it a couple of times since, and it's still Bits and Pieces has been the choice.
I think it's a really fitting song, and it goes well with scoring the goal, yeah.
I mean, does you not remember that Boaty McBoat face? I think the government understands, stop putting polls out to the public. You're never going to win, especially in Scotland, because we just want to take the piss out of you.
It's bizarre, it very much polarises opinion. Some people absolutely adore it. It's a Marmite song, you either love it or hate it.
The Bits and Pieces song now still irritates me.
When I first got asked for it, because people play Bits and Pieces, get it on now, I used to start playing the Dave Clark 5. I'm a pieces, bits and pieces. And they just didn't get it. I'm playing Bits and Pieces, what's the problem? So that became a wee bit of a cult hit. People like to hear the original as well as the dance song, even though they're two entirely different songs.
It's just a party anthem. Bits and Pieces is just a party anthem. I mean, you put that in any context and you're going to get a riot.
That game, big game for us. We really needed to win it, and then suddenly bang, bang.
Lee Griffiths scored 2 free kicks, 2 impossible free kicks. He scored from about 30 yards out.
2 goals in 2 minutes.
After the goals went in, Bits and Pieces went on. And the English fans didn't know where to look or what to do. They didn't have a clue what they were looking at.
It's an honor, and it's also, to be honest, I laughed about it because when I'm in Spain or in Holland or whatever, most people don't know, well, nobody knows. You know, and now Hampden Park, and of course the national team, right? You know, it's brilliant.
It's George that's made it so big too, because him being on air on a Saturday night, he's almost spreading that Bits and Pieces love constantly. And I think it's also fab that Patrick Prins is a champion of George as well, and letting him do this in Scotland. And I bet Patrick probably sits there and thinks, you know, I can't believe it's such a hit in Scotland. Like, out of all the countries in the world, he's probably DJ'd or been to all these different countries, and he probably sits at night and still can't get his head around why it's so big. And I think that George plays a massive part in that.
I think it's really special that you, and especially in this case, make something in a really tiny studio, something that you like, and then it gets out there, it gets heard, and you have this influence on people, and you make people happy with something that wasn't there before. Now, that's just almost magical, right? That's brilliant. Be part of a soundtrack of someone's life, you know? Create happy faces, good time. Something that I just, in this tiny studio, you know, brilliant. That's music for me.
Yes, yes.
Bits and pieces becoming an song.
What, instead of Flower of Scotland?
That must be a joke, right?
Every day of the week, I would be voting yes.
I cannot imagine that's going to be the national anthem. Come on, you know, that should be. Well, but then again, what can you say? Strange things happen.